What's happening?
The world's happening, right?
Yeah. Do people from Long Island always say they're from New York? Are they referring to the state or the city?
Well, we usually say the city if we're talking about the city, but I guess I can refer to Long Island. Well, yeah, I guess so. New York, usually people think of New York State, so.
Yeah, New York State comes right about 40 miles from here. Long Island's a little way away.
Yeah, I think you're about a 7.5-hour ride from me.
Right.
Going speed limit, of course, but.
That'd be about 500 miles or so.
Yeah, close to that. Well, it's the same address you have on your site, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, then for me it's about 7.5 hours. So it's not too bad, actually.
Right.
You know, so I thought you were a little higher up. So
330 feet approximately.
Okay. As long as you're on the shield, right?
Eh?
As long as you're on the shield, right? That's the
key.
Got to get to the shield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be in Ontario, in some parts of Ontario, and not be on the shield.
Right.
And, that would be most of the area that looks like an arrowhead.
Right.
Above Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, pointing at Lake Michigan.
I think, if I remember, all of Quebec is okay, right? That's to the east of you, right?
Quebec, I don't know. I don't think it's all okay, but some of it is okay. I wouldn't say that the people on the southern side of the St. Lawrence,
right,
behind Maine and Vermont and side Moncton, I don't think that would be okay.
So it's not even just getting north, but it's getting on the shield, right? So it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you're in Alaska, because they'll. Right?
Yeah, it's a big V. And it's from Labrador down to, say, Brockville, if you're making a point on the St. Lawrence River. And on the other side, it would be going up the Trent Canal to Lake Huron, and across, there's a point in the province of Ontario where the line kind of swings sharply going towards Hudson's Bay. Well, you would be going past that point and up to the Northwest Territory, what is now called Nunavut, where there is Great Slave and Great Bear Lake. That would be about the boundary.
Okay.
Now, the shape of it, as I've said before, is somewhat like Sherlock Holmes's hat, where our area of Ontario would be the sun visor, and then up at around the 53rd parallel, it would be a circle around the Arctic. And on the other side, there would be a flap that takes in the Gobi Desert, the Gobi Desert. So.
Okay.
But some people describe it in another way and put the flap, the visor, as Labrador, and the hat, looking like a Russian Moscow hat, has ear flaps. So we would be one ear flap on the right-hand side of the visor, and there would be another ear flap on the other side of the Arctic, which would be the Gobi Desert, and it would extend west to the line that is approximately Nebraska at a certain height.
Wow. And that's about 1,000 feet below you, right?
Yeah.
Roughly?
The Labrador, I think, is about 6,000 feet high, and Kingston would be ground level for the Canadian Shield. So it's a slope that goes from Kingston up to Labrador. And at our place in Ontario, we're about 1,000 feet above the actual shield.
Okay.
And the interesting item is that below us, about 800 feet above the Canadian Shield, is a stone structure or a rock. Until we get there, we don't know exactly what it looks like. About 100 feet in thickness, which means that it would be equivalent to about a 10-story building.
Right. Yep.
And there's a relationship to a quote in the Bible that says, "And on this rock I shall build my church."
Yep.
And the suggestion is that the church is that rock below us, and that rock below us would be a storage center that would hold the secrets of mankind, therefore the basic knowledge of what they call their church.
Wow.
And the secret that must be unveiled if we're ever going to stop this activity that is now going ahead would be to find the thing of value that is within that structure below us, and then prove to the world that the history they've learned is incorrect, and that genetic engineering has been going on for a long time. I don't know if I told you the background of that is the story of Enoch.
Yes, last time you spoke about that.
Yeah. So
is that going to be? Would that have hieroglyphs on it? Is that how it would work, or
well,
follow it out?
In Enoch, it describes as God giving to Enoch a half of the stone he brought in, cut diagonally, which suggests it then becomes a triangle,
right.
And said that he would retain one half, give him the other half, and at the point in time when the two halves came back together again, the information about the world would be known to everybody. Everybody would know the truth, type of thing. And one suggests that since the half that was given to Enoch was given to his son, and his son was Methuselah, the information received by Enoch and Methuselah has something to do with extending life through genetic engineering. In between the story of Methuselah living 960 some years and Enoch, there is the story of two other people, one that lives 300 years and another one that lives 700 and some years. So the suggestion is the information transmitted was about how genetic material could be used to clone an individual. And it's not really meaning that a person lived 300 years or 700 years. It means that from the genetic material received, they were able to make a new person who lived another so many years, and until they ran out, it took 300 years for the first one, took 700 and some years for the second one, and then Methuselah, living 960 some years, becomes the oldest they talk about. And my point is, it's not that he lived 960 some years, it's that they were able to grasp the concept that the DNA itself and where it came from was important, and therefore if Methuselah's DNA was stem cell rather than just ordinary, it can be replicated forever. And therefore, there's no purpose in just saying, and the next guy lives 2,000 years and what have you. So that stone, I suggest, was handed over to Joseph Smith. And it is the property of the Mormons, and the reason why they're in Salt Lake City, because I suggest this thing began at Lake Van in Turkey, which is a salt lake as well, and going to Salt Lake City, they went underground there and have established, from what I understand, a database of people's genealogy. That would be important in the context of if you genetically engineer a person, that person has an impact on his descendants or her descendants for a period of 4 generations, whereby then the actual strength of the material passed down dissipates to the point where it becomes recessive, not useful on a day-to-day basis. That's basically what I'm studying now with using cats as opposed to people, because it can be done easier and faster.
Right.
They don't argue with me.
That's nice. Yeah.
So I have about 27, 28 cats, and there's always some dying and some coming forward, but it's interesting, the project, how starting off with 2 cats, you can end up with 28 cats, and they're all different.
Do any of them have defects?
I beg your pardon?
Do any of them have defects?
Yes. Some of them are born with birth problems that are common to cats, and they die basically in a matter of weeks or months. Had, I think, about 6 cats go through that experience.
Okay.
Some of them have long hair, some short hair, some are every color you can imagine, from black cats to white cats. And most of them are orange. Orange seems to be a favorite color of direct genetic engineering, and it's suggestive of people with red hair. coming out of Mongolia would have been probably original material. And from the red, you get buff or blonde or orange. If you remove some of the red from the orange, it gets to be brown or tan in color.
Oh, okay.
But it's quite fun to watch that entire process developing before your eyes.
Now, what other animals do you have on the farm?
One donkey, symbolic here of union leaders. Makes a lot of noise, hides behind the sheep, does really nothing of significance except noise. Is really on side with the bad guys.
Yeah.
As long as it gets its cut.
Its cut of hair.
And we had 4 sheep, but I didn't replace any as they got older and died, and I'm down to 1 sheep, so I'm a 1 sheep herd. That makes me a shepherd.
A shepherd. Are you a good shepherd?
I doubt it. City boys don't make excellent country people because you don't have it in your DNA. But I probably am more attentive than most. Make sure that they have food and water.
Right.
Even if that means I have to carry it through a storm.
Yep. I'm sure you get a lot of those up there, too, huh?
Hey?
I'm sure you get a lot of those nice wintry storms where you're living, right?
Yeah, although it's getting less and less for the last 3 years, so climate change is having some impact, I think. Then we had 3 pigs for the first 3 years, and then the people who sold me the pigs found out who I was, and I guess they were Masons and didn't appreciate me, so they gave me 3 sick pigs.
Oh, wow.
So I 2 of them died in the first couple of weeks, and the other one I killed but didn't use any of its meat or anything.
Right.
And decided that I wouldn't. There was no benefit after 3 years, anyways, of continuing the process. I found out about pigs what I wanted to find out, and it had to do with their hair being short and bristly, as opposed to long-haired cats and dogs, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I found out that they're very intelligent, very clean, against what their reputation is. For a guy born on a 3rd floor apartment.
Right. Now I remember
interesting experience.
I remember you one of our earlier talks. You were saying how you were in that some hotel that had a room number 23 and a 14-room hotel, and then you saw, you did. If you don't mind saying that story again, but I remember the point you were getting at was that there was the 2 vases or vases. Now I've been thinking, now are the vases symbolic to a test tube? Is that what that's supposed to be? I was trying to figure out.
It has a couple of meanings that can be interpreted, and all of this usually has more than one definition because they need deniability. If you find out one, they need to tell you it's the other type of thing.
Yeah.
The vase is symbol of a container. Back in the old days, there weren't many things that could be used for containers that would allow the retainment of liquid.
Right.
It's interesting that a container is a word, syllable in there, tain, which is used in mountain, a mountain. contain. And the word tain basically means the back sheet on a sheet of glass that turns it into a mirror. So that a mountain and a container blocks your vision of what's really behind it. And therefore, the Chinese trying to demonstrate what would be the best slave would use a vase to describe a person holding inside of it the information needed in genetics. But it was made of clay, a pot made of clay, which was pretty plain stuff. And they found a way to glaze the outside of it in the material we call porcelain. And porcelain is suggestive of something on the outside that embellishes everything but denies you real knowledge of what's inside. And if you use the word porcelain and break it down into its component parts, you have two parts. One is pork, P-O-R-C, which is pork in French. Rock, if you will, R-O-C. And the P is suggestive of end times. Len is from the word line. Lins are lines. And Glen is a G, Len. And a Len is a suggestive of a male, where a Lin is suggestive of a combination. One instead of an E, I and E being key letters. Therefore, all of it is to say that in the end, that brought on the idea that a male could be used as the main structure, a female could be used to cover the outside because it's a better marketing vehicle, and it already has built-in abilities to replicate itself, although it would not be given the instruments to make eggs itself. It could, in fact, take an egg from a jar and insert it, and then it would be fertilized because hermaphrodite has a single testy. Maybe it's considering the fact that the male inside's testes could be the fertilizer agent in there. And the whole would serve as a vehicle, the ultimate car for transporting Neanderthalers around. And the Neanderthaler wouldn't go whole, because whole lives in the Moho discontinuity, but in the period they spent in Japan with the Jesuits in the 16th to 1800s and closed down the country, one of the tasks they were working on was miniaturization. And what the Neanderthalers wanted miniaturized symbolized by the bonsai trees, is the medulla, pons, and thalamus and hypothalamus and pituitary gland and all of that, so that it could be a structure small enough to be fitted into the neck area of this new slave. Of course, that's all symbolic of genetic material that has to be assembled that will grow into that material or those parts of the body, and that in the end brought upon the final product that is to be the best slave, a male, 5'10" to 6'2", female exterior, capable of carrying a fetus to term from egg on, and controlled robotically by a medulla fitted in the neck that would will the will of the Neanderthalers and not the will of the slave.
So prior to this, there were, they haven't developed this into the neck of the slave, so people that lived before this time didn't have the Neanderthaler in their neck?
They didn't have the Neanderthaler in the neck. They had male with female parts or female with male parts. So my suggestion is that the number 6 is the number used for female, and the number 9 is the figure used for how you make something that resembles female but is not female. And the two put together are equilibrium, the flag of Korea, 6 and 9 together.
Right.
Whereas the male is a number 8. And the 9 was constantly being worked on, and that's how you go from male to homosexual, from female to lesbian, cross-gender, all of those variations that were attempts at getting what they wanted were considered to be number 9s. But what we're seeing introduced this year is number 10. And number 10 is basically the first finished versions that they consider of the combination of the three, what they call triune, 3 in 1.
Right.
And they had basically done it in some ways, Golda Meir, for example, being one example. At the other end of the scale, Carla Bruni gives you an idea of what they're working on in appearance, or porcelain. But what they're really aiming for is the right balance for a world leader. And that balance at this stage of the game suggests that it would be Hillary Clinton or Chelsea. Another example of the right balance would be Michelle Obama.
Okay.
Michelle Obama is described as Batwoman.
Batwoman?
Yeah. And in their language, they replace the O with 2 E's.
Women. Yeah.
That wee man.
All right, you posted that. Was it today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because 2 E's are symbolic of 88. So if male is an 8, an 88 is a male-woman combined.
Oh, right. Right, like an uppercase E with 88.
Yeah. Mirrored on each other.
Yep. Now,
in sculpting, you must always be looking for the part that's missing.
Oh, yeah. Now, with everyday people, they still have that piggy in their neck, or is that only something engineered for rules?
I would suggest that by now, the process having begun in everyday people in 1717 with the creation of secular Freemasonry, and having moved to the operational level in 1776 with the Jesuits sending off a guy to pretend he was mad at them and setting up the Illuminati.
Right.
That we now have had over 200 years of adding to the population. And I cannot see how that is not long enough to have completed the process. I believe that everybody by now is a product of either an original transfer of an egg that is 62% pure, or its offsprings over 4 generations.
Wow.
So if you had 200 years ago a population on the planet of maybe 1 billion, the net result of the 6 billion we have today would all be descendants. Right. Therefore, should all come equipped.
And now it makes sense why they try to get everyone into the cities so that they can all just breed from the same people, right?
Yeah. Citizens. Zen. Easy. Big easy as you make them into new Zens.
Now, was the language, to go back now, how would the Neanderthalers and clan mothers communicate? If they're just...
The suggestion is that the Neanderthalers cannot speak in the normal sense of the word. Click language may be part of the description, but certainly more likely would be pictographs. And I don't think there is much of a suggestion of intercourse having occurred between the two, although exceptionally speaking, that might have occurred. It's more a genetic engineering performed on clan mother by Neanderthals.
Okay.
And the symbol, of course, is woman X chromosome. And male, you break off a leg, make a Y chromosome. And the variations in between, when they were dealing with gays and lesbians and things like that, would be how much of the broken leg is still there.
Right. That makes sense.
That's symbolic, of course. It's all translate to genome and much more complicated than I can deal with.
I'm sure. I think it's interesting to think that even, like, you know, for how long ago that was, or just being able to come up with technology that can even see genes and be able, let alone manipulate them. And,
you have to think of it not from our point of view, but from their point of view. Having been born at least 120,000 years ago, some say 200,000 years ago, and others go further still. But if Neanderthaler was in fact a shrub-type person with very, very high intellect as a group of people, before they came in contact with the clan mothers, which would have been in 85,000 BC, they had a period, therefore, of at least 30,000 years to perfect their understanding of genetics. They then lived with the clan mothers, not in the same room, but in the same general area of the Afar Triangle of Ethiopia and the Olduvai Gorge and all that area, from 85,000 years BC to 58,800 BC, which again gives you 30,000 years. So you have 60,000 years of knowledge followed by alpha test site. Then they go quiet for a period till about 40,000 BC when they leave the community of clan mothers and set up in what we call Somalia and continue their research there of plants and minerals, and basically what you're dealing is alchemy. It's a mixture of chemistry and all other sciences. And they produce their servants, which they call Cro-Magnon. And those servants are distributed still to this day in the southern part of Africa, below the Sahara Desert, as opposed to above the Sahara Desert. And at one stage of the game, that's at 40,000 BC, they make Cro-Magnon. At one stage of the game, and the suggestion is between 30,000 and 25,000 BC, for a period of 5,000 years, they moved to an island called Madagascar and have access to a few other islands which they can use as laboratories. Comoros Islands, for example, off to the north, west of where they were on Madagascar, which are French islands today. And from that vantage point of Madagascar and the islands, they design a slave which is almost what we know as mankind today, called Roma, taking 2 letters out of Crow and 2 letters out of Magnan. Because non is basically wisdom, genetic way of speaking, Gnostic.
Yeah.
So it's the man of wisdom is produced on Madagascar. And then by 25 to 24,000 BC, they move to Antarctica. At the time, Antarctica is a continent much like North America is today, with great plains, grass, mountains with snow on top. And it's a move that is done basically because it is the center of the planet. If you look at the site on the left-hand side, I have a picture of Antarctica, of the Earth, on which is focused on Antarctica, and if you click on it, it enlarges and it revolves, and you get to see that there is only one ocean in the world, and it all leads to Antarctica.
Okay.
It's like a big octopus. But once you look at Antarctica by itself, it's shaped like a rabbit. You have to let it turn till it gets to the right place. But you have a big white rabbit. And the white, of course, comes about with the coming of an ice age. An ice age is a thing that happens on Earth on a semi-regular basis. And an ice age, I suggest to you, is something that is manufactured in outer space.
Mm-hmm.
If a body outside the solar system has a flyby period which passes the solar system, it will have an effect on orbits within the solar system. And it will change the orbit from circular to egg-shaped.
Right.
That, therefore, means that all of the time the planet must spend in the elongated part, it's colder because it's further away from the sun. But as it comes into the sun, it normally warms up and things melt. But then when it starts its journey up that slope again, it gets colder. And the more elongated the orbit is, the longer the period of ice will last. And the further down it will extend because it doesn't have a chance to melt. And the less water there will be in the oceans as there is more and more ice, and therefore more a possibility of moving across what we call straits today, Bering Strait, or
right.
the space between Antarctica and Australia, the space between Sri Lanka and India, England and France. All of those things kind of become all linked together. But as the object moves further away from the sun, then the orbit of Earth returns closer to the shape of the circle, and as it does that, the temperature, mean temperature, increases. Scientists tell us that the mean temperature changes 2 degrees, and that's all that's needed between no ice and an ice age. And there you go. We are basically, obviously, coming out of a period of some effect upon the planet. We're at the end of the ice age, not quite there yet, since we still have ice in Antarctica and in the Arctic. However, it's getting shorter and shorter, their season, and is about to change. Once the Earth returns to totally circular orbit, then there is no difference in climate anywhere on the planet.
I thought it was because all the SUVs.
So there you have the basic general structure of the process. So with a coming ice age on Antarctica, 24,000 BC, for 8,000 years to 16,000 BC, it got colder. From 16,000 BC to 8,000 BC, it got warmer. At about 13,000 BC, as it was getting warmer, it was possible for some Roma to be sent out and do some exploration on the surface of the planet, getting straight their ground positioning, and I'm sure matching up surface areas with their shortest tunnel distance from underground, so that they would know where they were popping up, wherever they were popping up, anywhere on the planet. Since the Moho discontinuity itself would completely encircle the mantle, you have the possibility of popping up anywhere, and the usual route would be an extinct cone volcano.
Mm-hmm.
Once they had done the exploration of the planet, they basically began to populate it at about 8,500 BC until 4,000 BC. And at 4,000 BC, they established what is called the College of 6 Days, which basically meant that they were opening a lab or a university, which would be the surface of the planet. And there would be a university within the university, the broader university being the entire planet. The narrower university would be the United States of America at the end times. College of 6 Days in their language means 6,000 years. So the time from Adam to 0 and from 0 to 2,000.
Is that why they run on that?
The entire story is of genetic engineering, of course, starting with Adam. Take a rib and make a woman.
Is that why they run on that calendar?
Yeah. And the moon is their year. So it's a lunar calendar, and why the Catholic Church always has their saints' days and stuff like that, based upon the lunar year. It's to cause confusion. They give one solar calendar to the people while they keep a lunar calendar for themselves, and therefore can be talking about something different than what they tell us.
Wow. Well,
the word Jesuit is basically I am. Je suis. I am.
Yeah.
I am because I think is what René said. What was his name? Philosopher from France.
Yeah. Mental block right now.
Yeah, I get these blanks too occasionally. But in anyways, the word René just means reborn. So when they're talking about born again in the Christian Protestant churches, there's really two versions of that. The version that they're selling is that you can have everlasting life by giving them money.
Of course.
But in reality, without their help, you could have everlasting life if creation decided to use your DNA over and over again, and along the way, the procedure being understood by the one they call creator, gods, they also, through a system called intelligent design, or in science, genetic engineering, could model what creation can do. That's basically to store the DNA, divide it into its component parts, recombine it into what you want the new species to be. For creation, it was basically from chemistry into plant, into bird, into animal, and into thinking human beings. So creator stole the concept and wrote a religion around it and pretended to be creation and used the knowledge they had gained in intelligent design to manufacture people who can be physically born again, as creation had caused clan mothers to clone themselves. They want a clone of their own, but they want a new and improved version.
Wouldn't it be interesting, though, if creation made the creators just for that purpose alone?
Sure. It's always a possibility or probability. Creation never experiencing anything can find things more interesting could it experience. And you have a choice in believing it made it happen, or my preference, it let it happen.
Right. Yeah.
And by letting it happen, it can experience through its own agents and bring them back. And its agents would be cells within creation. And how he, she, it, creation sneaks it into the lab so that it gets mixed in with creator's stuff is still to be worked out by me. Everything comes eventually. But apparently that's what happens, is that every now and then creator puts out product which is not totally in its control. I believe that has something to do with the shell being the basic structure of the original rather than a manufactured egg shell. But I still have work to do on that. Mm-hmm. It's not my priority. My priority is basically to try to make sense out of the whole thing, observe, analyze, conclude. And since I only carry part of the answers, to assemble a critical mass that can attain all of the answers, and that critical mass, I suggest, is 13. I thought it would be an easy thing to do. Yes, Tom, I'm on the phone. Okay, supper's ready. The model, of course, is the orange. You can think of it as balls of equal size around a single ball, or you can think of it as the orange, which has the seed in the middle, and slices 12 in numbers in a circle around protecting the seed in the middle. And you can think of Creator's version as a miniaturized orange, a clementine, seedless.
Okay. Yeah, seedless. Right.
So I'll have to leave you at that and go for my supper because the chef gets mad.
The chef has spoken, huh?
That's
all right.
The only time he speaks is when he says it's ready.
Hey. All right, well, enjoy, and thank you again.
Okay. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye.